In this video, we're going to talk about Ripple, PayID, and why it's going to be massive for the ecosystem, especially when it comes to mass adoption. PayID lives up to Ripple standards of going beyond walled gardens. And with this open source protocol, we got some exciting stuff to talk about. Let's go.
And now, the XRP Minute with Chip on the chain.
Chip here with the XRP Minute. So Ripple put out a really amazing blog post. They always do, but I want to drill down on this one because this one has to do with Ripple and PayID. And so I'll take you through some of the concepts of the blog post. One of the things they talk about is payments really ought to be easier. And they make a point of why is it easier to take a picture of a $5 bill, $5 banknote, right? And then send it to somebody, right? It's much faster than you could actually send a payment. And also, like email and SMS, when you're sending text messages, which is a single network for the entire world, the payment infrastructure consists of just hundreds and thousands of these little ecosystems, right? You got your PayPals of the world. You have, let's say, Apple Pay, Google Pay, right? If you're on iOS, you can use Apple Pay. If anybody who's connected, but you're still living inside of their ecosystem, which is why I'm so excited to talk about PayID, because this is really a game changer. You know, we've talked a lot about open source. Open source means it can be developed. I love this because this is going to live above and beyond. Now, who are some of the founding members? We'll jump into that. But Ripple's core philosophy here is that payments should be open. It should be easy for anyone to pay somebody, and especially in businesses, instantly. They're no longer going to be in these fragmented sort of ecosystems, and there's just tons of them. There's so many you can't figure it out, and if you're in business, there's always somebody else that's working off of a different network, and we don't have that communication. PayID enhances RippleNet. So one of the cool things here is that Ripple's payment network, RippleNet, is going to be integrating PayID to further the interoperability into cross-border payments. And RippleNet's on-demand liquidity service empowers financial institutions to instantly, reliably, and cost-effectively send global payments. So it's a pretty amazing development here, and I want to jump a little bit into this. Let's take a little closer look here. So if we take a look at who some of the partners are, check this out. Here's the founding members. You might notice some of the names. You got BitGo, BitPay, Bitso, Bitstamp, right? Brave, BRD, Care. I mean, just CoinsPH, Crypto.com, just GoPay, a lot. You have Coil involved in this, BitTrue, CoinField, CoinMe, right? The list goes on. Forte. You recognize a lot of the names. How about PolySign, Signum, Tangum, Unstoppable Domains, Uphold, Zum, and who's this? Who is that? Where's our little friend right here? Oh yeah, that's Ripple right there. Beautiful, right? So want to jump a little dive in here. So the Universal, let's jump into their website, the PayID website here. The Universal Payment Identifier. So as you see over here, this illustration right here, you've got these different sort of fragmented, you got someone paying in Bitcoin, you have somebody else paying with Visa, somebody else paying with Alipay, right? Now over here, if you look right here, this pointer right here, this is for somebody who had set up a pointer, and this is how this person gets paid. So it doesn't really matter how they're getting paid. The fact is they're going to be getting paid, right? And that's one of the great things about this. So first of all, it's open source. We talked a little bit about that. I'm a big believer in open source. That means it's not a walled garden sort of experience, and a lot of people can develop and contribute to the project. It's an overall better payment experience and a simple tech stack. It basically runs on HTTP and DNS standards, so we're not blazing any new trails there. Can be deployed in any app on any platform. That's what I talked about. It's platform agnostic. It's currency agnostic. It doesn't care. So let's jump down even further. So you build this into your app. You want to receive money. Here's your code. You want to send money, and so basically whatever for a developer, if you're using Java or Spring Kit or whatever you're using, that's the Spring SDK, and we're going to jump a little bit more into that because I think that is just really amazing. 100 million users and growing. What? So if you look at all the different people that are embedding it and using it, you can see we've already covered some of those. And then we're going to jump in here because here we go. when we talk about getting started for developers, PayID, the technical white paper, APIs, standards. Now look at this, Spring SDK integration, just like that. Paywall, you can go ahead and set up a test wallet, get started with that. Compliance, security, privacy. This is amazingly well thought out and executed. It's very infrequent that something comes along that gets me so excited. And when I see PayID, I'm like, I see this as being just a massive standard. If you go here to the website, you can go ahead and put your name in there and join the community, which I've already done. But let's go into here. So PayID is used in apps across a variety of payment use cases. Let's take a look at a couple of them. So you got your peer-to-peer payments. This is where one app can send and receive to another app. The key benefit here is that it reduces the friction in the payment experience, increases conversion, helps company reach new users across a broader connected network. How about e-commerce checkout? So if you look at this, let's just drill in on this. Take a look at this. Does this look familiar? Not what you're seeing in the blue here, but take a look behind it. Do you notice that? PayPal, Google Pay, right? You have your GPay there, your Shop Pay, whatever it may be. This is what we're accustomed to. Now, what happens if you're using PayID and you select PayID? You have all these regular sort of established ecosystems, but PayID is universal, and that doesn't mean that these other legacy walled gardens, payment systems, rails cannot incorporate in it. But let's take a look over here. So here we go. Let's suppose we selected checkout with PayID. There's our pointer right there. We're buying a pair of sunglasses. And then how are we going to pay with this? Well, we have a whole different slew of different options here. We can pay with Euro. We can pay with XRP. Does the conversion automatically based on how I want to pay. I'm buying it. I'm in the driver's seat. I can pay any way I want. It automatically goes ahead. It's 32 euros, but you can see that if I want to pay for the euro, but depending on XRP, it's X amount of XRP, and I don't know if that's really accurate. That could change over time. But I wanted to display this because this is really game-changing type of stuff. Now, when we talk about mass adoption, what are we really looking for? Mass adoption, we look for one thing only. When the world starts using it. Now, when people say, oh, I got PayID. Oh, I like PayID, right? Because PayID will be incorporated in your phone. You're using an app, and one of the choices will be PayID. Now, if you're an Apple or an iOS or Android user, you already have these options, right? And it's real convenient because oh man, it's so easy. I just put my face, and if I use the Apple Pay or if I'm using Google Pay, most of the time I'm on a web experience when I'm using Google Pay because it's incorporated into everything I'm already using. Suppose there's subscription payments. Well, here's another way to pay. Companies can use PayID simply by hooking up the recurring payments, and so the big takeaway here is customers have a much easier, simple way to renew subscriptions. You know, if your subscription is for 3 months and then it doesn't auto renew and then you got to go in there, think about how ease of use this is going to be. And then let's look at invoices. So another key factor of PayID is services have the ability, and think about this in terms of business, have the ability to send payments, right? You can actually send a payment, you can receive a payment, but an invoice is what is called about in business. So if I'm sending something and you're buying 500 widgets perhaps, or 5,000 widgets, I can incorporate, so devs can incorporate this into their app, and they can basically go ahead and send an invoice. This basic streamlined experience for both the client and the provider, it works really well for any payment method, any wallet that supports payment IDs. PayID, I should say. Sorry about that. PayID. Now think about it like this. Let's jump into this. Let's look at the, I want to jump into the white paper here first. So this is the tech white paper. I want you to look at the names up here. Okay, Anchal Malhotra, Austin King, David Schwartz, and Michael Zakowski. Let's take a look at these folks right here. So Anchal, where is she from? Well, she's a senior software research engineer at Spring. Now we know Spring, right? Lecturer and distributed systems. There she is. Here's her LinkedIn profile. What else do we have? How about Austin King, also from Ripple, entrepreneur and open source advocate. You have somebody who's big into open source right there. Full-time software engineer, came over in 2019. How did he come over? Well, he came over, you know that Spring Labs had acquired Strata Labs, right? So that acquisition happened, and this is basically where we know Austin King from. And let's go a little bit further. We've got Michael Zakowski. He's the head of DeFi over at Spring. Are you catching this? We've got Spring, two people from Spring. We have Ripple, and of course, who else but David Schwartz, the man, the myth, the legend, CTO at Ripple, XRP ledger architect. Are you starting to understand what's going on here? This is way exciting. Let's jump back. I want to go back into the white paper here for a moment. So if we go down here, let's jump past some of this stuff here. It might be a little bit fun for me to find this, but I want to talk about the introduction here. So let's jump in even further. So one of the things about PayID, its mission is to create a simple, easy to remember, human readable payment, not 6-1259, right? This big string of code that you got to copy and paste. If you can't read it, it's really difficult to duplicate it. And many of the people in the community, you might know somebody that attempted to do that. They made a typo, they hit something, and then it's gone forever. So this is human readable payment system for non-technical users. And let's face it, when it comes to this stuff, we're all non-technical, okay? Standardize, and we talk about, before we get there, we talk about mass adoption. What's the one thing we talk about? It's got to work for Aunt Mabel, because she doesn't know anything about it. She knows how to send an email maybe, or a text. So you have to make it, this is why, another reason why it's going to be huge for mass adoption. And basically standardizing this protocol that provides the mapping between these readable addresses. So it's one thing for me to send, chip dot blah 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 crypto and send it over to, let's say, Jeff.crypto. It's great, I'm sending it, but what's happening in between? So that's what they're talking about, standardizing a protocol that can go between and have that map. And as users, we don't care. We just know we're sending it to someone. Another amazing, unique feature about PayID. So when I started ripping through this, there's a lot to read and take in, and obviously I'm going to have to dissect this a little bit more. But one of the things that I wanted to get into was transaction. Let's take a look at transaction. Let's take a look at what this is. So here we go, the abstract. So it says first functionality that cryptographically correlates on-ledger transactions to third-party verifiable proofs of payment and receipts for payment. We just talked about that. Secondly, PayID protocol is extended to provide a message standard for regulated covered institutions to exchange information for full compliance requirements in its various forms. So that's something we touched on a little bit earlier, compliance, security, risk, eliminating all of those factors. Then I said, that's interesting. There's 80 references on there. Let's take a look at XRP. What is XRP? What about XRP in here? Well, let's take a look at where that appears, okay? So right under here, beyond simplicity, you got neutrality, currency, and network agnostic. Now, what does that mean? It means it doesn't care. It doesn't care which currency it is. So you can make, it's capable of making payments for, Bitcoin, XRP, ERC20 tokens, Lightning, ILP, doesn't matter. Even across networks like ACH, bridging legacy payment systems into the future. You don't flick a switch and get there overnight, and it's a beautiful way to do that. So I started looking through, what else is XRP? Well, here we go. How about addresses? So this payment network here, the value of this field is a payment network. For example, XRPL, XRP ledger right there. Now we know that the Spring SDK is also incorporated, and Spring SDK makes it simple for developers to interface with the XRPL. Let's look further. So initially we proposed standards with the headers similar to XRP, ACH, ILP payment networks. We also proposed one header that returns all addresses across payment networks and environments. So this is another huge thing. Here we go, here's XRP right here. Now this right here, this header will return XRPL mainnet X addresses or classic addresses. Point is I'm trying to make is, it's strung throughout this document for a reason, right? We're not going to get into every occurrence of that, but I wanted to let you know that when you can use, here's PayID, you can use Spring SDK with this. Now we talked a little bit about unstoppable domains. So unstoppable domains, let's just say we want Jobs Steve in here. Okay, you can get this jobsteve.crypto. That would be for $40. You could buy that domain. That would be your pointer, right? So Unstoppable Domains is part of this. And what their big claim to fame was trying to make readable pointers because nobody can remember 6810-7561. And I want to go back into, let's go here, guys. We'll get to it. So let's run through some of this. I think there's some valuable information in here. PayID, what is it? Well, it's a universal payment identifier that makes it easy for people to send and receive money in any currency across a payment network. Who uses it? Any businesses that sends and receives money can use PayID to give their customers a simple and human readable ID that works across any payment network. And we took a look at some of those folks and who they are. So let's talk about how it's compliant with international regulations. Rather than looking at a prescribable single solution, PayID is flexible and composable by design, which empowers transaction participants to implement their own policies. So you can run a PayID server and you can implement your own policies on how you want it to work. But the key thing here is that it provides a simple extension that helps businesses satisfy the travel rule of record keeping required in jurisdictions globally, including both current FinCEN rules and FATF, right? So compliance, regulations, all built into and right ahead, right out of the gate to PayID. So how do I get started? It's easy to set up. We looked a little bit of the documentation. So how do you implement it? It's free to use. That's another key component here. When you create open source is free and it continues to grow. And they talk about the SDK, Spring SDK, the easiest way to send to PayID on your app. Think about that, right? What's the tech built on? I talked about this before, HTTP. So it's going across existing technology. It's a simple stack. It's not like anything that's complex. Let's take a look at security. It leverages tried and true security technologies that secure all internet services, including e-commerce, digital banking services. Additionally, PayID messages include cryptographic certificates and signatures. So security is built into this puppy as well. So how do you deploy a server? Well, easy. You just it's designed for developers. Here we call them devs. So you can deploy a PayID server, just a few commands with an existing web infrastructure, and then integrate it into an application or an account system with just a few lines of code. So it makes it really, really easy. And where can you learn about building more? Well, obviously you can visit the docs page. And again, we get back down in here a little bit more. You can get more into the compliance. Here's the travel rule that we talked about, such as AML. Benefits of using it: simplicity, compatibility, neutrality, and privacy and security. So guys, as you can see here, this is something that I believe will become a universal sort of payment system. And the good news is that the more companies and app builders that push it in their app, the more you're going to see this start showing up on app. You're going to be checking out on something, and you're going to look on your phone and say, whoa, PayID. Okay, that's fine. And you can send stuff back and forth. It's just phenomenally well done, and it's basically designed with interoperability and scalability in mind, right? It's not your grandma's payment system, if you will. This goes far beyond what we're used to. So how the payment rule works with PayID. So you have Alice over here. Here's her payment pointer at vaspa.com. You've got this virtual asset service provider A. Then that goes over to the virtual asset provider B, over to Bob at vasb.com. So you see we're starting to build in this simplicity. I'm not going to jump through all these steps, but you can see how the steps work here. It's a little bit more on the tech side. I don't think it's anything we're going to look at. Other extensions, digital identity. So let's suppose on my iPhone I can build in some other features that would work really well as far as my fingerprint, my face, whatever it could be. We talked about the invoicing, commerce, how you get paid, how charities can go ahead. You can are already leveraging this technology. Really amazing stuff. So, I mean, I think in closing here, I think one of the things that I wanted to say is that when you look at something like that, and we only kind of graze the surface, but think of PayID as this universal sort of system that doesn't care about which currency, it doesn't care if it's fiat, it doesn't care if it's crypto, and it basically leverages a lot of the tools that we already know, right? It uses HTTP, like a simple existing tech stack. It leverages the Spring SDK software developer kit that allows developers to kind of interface with this. This is huge news. I'm really excited about when I hear stuff like this. And when we all talk about when moon, mass adoption, when are we going to get that? Well, here it is. This is the next evolutionary step. And this isn't Ripple. Don't get crazy. Ripple's not going at it alone here. Oh no. We already looked at some of the people that were involved in this. We went through the list. They're not going it alone. When you get a bunch of people together who share a similar philosophy and say we need to have open standards, guess what? You're going to see this take off, and this technology is what is going to help create the mass adoption. You know, when someone has to get into it and you go like, oh, you need a ledger and you need this and you need to do that, and oh, it's real simple to send a payment, and their eyes are like this, you know, crazy. Well, guess what? This is going to make it even simpler. It's going to make everything better. If you like what you're seeing here, go down below, like and subscribe the video. Also, we have another channel which you can also see below. You can check that out too. We do live streams, we do really cool interviews, and we have people from the different communities on where we bring them in. It's called the Round Table, and we talk about stuff. And we talk about technology and cryptocurrencies and geopolitical stuff. It really is something great. I want to thank you for taking time. And if you got it this far, that one person, yeah, you, if you made it this far, I thank you, and I thank everybody for watching today. I'm Chip. That's all I got. Let me know down below if you want to comment on what you think is going to happen next and what you're excited about when it comes to this technology or not excited. Good comments, bad comments. I'm Chip, and I am out.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.